Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Well done, OP. Good for you for sending the receptionist chocolate. You have no idea how such a small gesture of gratitude can make someone's year. God knows if that lady annoyed you that much. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. She demands I drive out to fix her broken terminal. Twice. Way back in the day, 1992-ish, I worked tech support for a company that handled installations of Unix computers, terminals, software for accounting systems for small organizations. Custom software, check printing, used a special MICR toner in off-the-shelf HP laser printers, all running off Unix, SCO, Motorola, etc. servers. We could dial into their setup and remote control the software, apply updates, etc. One day, I get a call from this woman who insisted that the terminal she was using was broken. I called into their system and could see that the terminal wasn't connected at the moment, so I stepped her through making sure that it was plugged in. She insisted absolutely that it was plugged in, turned on, and the light was on and everything. After running through all the possibilities that I could think of, she was still adamant that I come out and replace the terminal since it was clearly broken. I was hesitant to make the trip since it was 225 kilometers away, would require about 5 or 6 hours of my day to make the round trip, traffic and a lot of snow, but my boss told me to make sure these customers were kept happy. I grabbed a new terminal out of the storage closet, some extra cabling, in case it was just a bad serial cable, and my tools and headed out on the trip. At least I got paid enough per kilometer that it was well worth it. It took me about 3 hours to get there, and the woman is just steamed. I walk in the door, set my bag down, look at the wall where the power cord is clearly not plugged into the wall itself. I picked up the cable, plugged it in, and lo and behold, the terminal turned on and the login prompt comes up. I looked at her, and she tells me that she tried that. I was literally in the office for less than 60 seconds, and since the call was not actually our problem, they got billed for the 6-hour service call in full, and I got 450 kilometers of mileage, at like 25 cents per kilometer, was way more than the gas/maintenance on my old 86 Honda Accord cost me. Cue the same woman 8 days later. She's on the phone to me screaming that my fix didn't work at all and that the terminal was broken again and that I needed to replace the faulty terminal right now. I asked her if the terminal was plugged into the wall because remember last week when I came out and it wasn't plugged in? Are you absolutely sure? She was absolutely sure. Another 3-hour drive down there, walk in the door, and look at what I see. The power cable is clearly laying on the floor again. I asked her if she saw that it was unplugged. She told me that she isn't technical and that I should have made sure that it was done right last time. I plugged it back in, and guess what? It worked. Huzzah! She was still mad because it shouldn't be happening this much. Not sure how I was supposed to make that happen. I grabbed my bag, but before I left, I noticed that this small company had gotten a new receptionist. I guess before that they didn't have one, so I stopped and chatted for a bit, asked her if she knew anything about what was going on with the plug to the terminal. She didn't have a clue, but she'd keep an eye out for me. Made it another 10 days before I get another call from the lady again. I tell her I was on a service call, but I'd call her back in 5 minutes. A quick call to the receptionist where she said that the lady had her little nephews in the room, so she ran and checked that the terminal was unplugged for me. It was. She plugged it back in, and when I called her back, the lady said it was working again, but was still wary that it was going to go out. I told her that if it fails again, have a receptionist call me so she won't have to wait, and I can perform a reset of the connection remotely, a new feature, and get her up and running in 2 minutes. I never had to make another in-person service call to that location again. I sent the receptionist a big box of Bernard Callebaut chocolates for Christmas. Thank God you had that receptionist to help you handle those calls from then on. Gotta love people who absolutely refuse to understand how electronics work. And our second story. Neighbor tries to flex, gets the shaft instead. This might be long, but worth the read, I think. Spec home build with a $12 million budget and a 16-month schedule. Next-door neighbor immediately qualifies as a complete D-head, knows everybody, including the principals of the company I work for. At the very beginning of the work, he asks for a row of redwood trees to be planted as screening between the properties. Principals grant his request as a good neighbor gesture, $31,000. Every step of the project, he either stands out at the end of the drive taking pictures or he's flying his drone over the lot. He starts asking questions about whether or not work in progress is covered under the permit. He confides that he's obtained a copy of the permit and a set of plans. One day he asks us for a meeting to discuss the redwood trees. Yes, those trees. He comes over at the appointed time and introduces his wife's landscape architect. Famous guy, apparently, and he tries pulling some muscle moves by trying to convince us that the redwood trees are stealing their water. They also don't fit his vision for the project they're considering, which will be a total side and backyard makeover with walkways, stone walls, fountains, etc. He wants mature oak trees instead. Cut down and remove the redwoods at our expense and plant new oak trees also at our expense because, screening. We decline, which sends famous architect guy and the wife into a rage. They decide to move forward with their project anyway, and the major earth-moving, concrete forming, irrigation, etc. are all getting placed. Mr. Drone Guy continues to make efforts to get the oak trees swapped in under threats that maybe some of the work we're doing isn't covered under the permit. Seems he also acted as the GC for his own remodel, so he must really know what he's talking about. He sends emails, registered letters from his lawyer, all in an effort to get us to swap out the trees. Finally, we're within sight of completing our project, and from the second floor, we can see that they've really transformed their whole yard into little parklets with mature plantings and walkways and all the other stuff. It's impressive. So I call the town for a courtesy inspection prior to final, and the next day the inspector, an old friend whose father's also an old friend, stops by to tour the property for any red flags. I save the best for last, and we make it upstairs and make it to the best possible viewing point of the neighbor's magnificent landscape project, and my inspector friend casually but loudly says, "What the hell is all that? I never saw a permit come through for all that." And he bounds downstairs and heads back to the office. I'm guessing to pull files. But here comes the best part. Through abutting property searches that we always perform as due diligence, we discovered that the neighbor's side yard in its entirety is an 80-foot wide utility easement for the single largest underground water aqueduct for the entire region. Can't be built on. We kept mum, now because there's also a seasonal creek that crosses said easement. Fish and Game are notified of the work in progress. In addition, we now have the State Water Resources Board, along with the major water utility company inspections and enforcement department, making inquiries along with the town building department. No permit application was ever submitted for any of the work Mr. Drone Guy had done. Oof. Our property sold, and during some modifications for the new owner, we watched with subdued glee as every stick and stone was removed from the offending area and was to be left in a natural state for eternity. Major fines were also levied. Definitely worth the read. Glad he got his comeuppance. Now if only he'd learn something and not do this to the next person. And our last story. HOA debt drama. My battle with unjust charges. My dad died in 2009, and I was the sole heir to the estate, which was insolvent. Debt exceeded assets. A point to keep in mind is that I'm not the executor, only the heir. Anyway, the HOA had been paid the quarterly dues up to then, so in the fall of 2009, we were all good. Once the will was filed and the county noted I was the sole heir, the house passed into my name on the property records, but I had no legal authority to sell it, as it was an asset of the estate, and I was not acting as an agent thereof. A few months pass and the HOA dues start for the new quarter. They mail letters to the house. I forward them to the executor. Eventually, they start calling me and asking why those bills have not been paid. I refer them to the executor, and the HOA goes away for a few months. Then, in the middle of 2010, they start mailing me bills at my address, complete with a coupon book and everything. I call them and ask what's up. They tell me in no uncertain terms that I'm responsible for this debt because my name's on the property paperwork assigned by the county. I call the executors and ask why they haven't been paying. Their position is that because the estate is insolvent, they can pay no bills, as that would show preferential treatment of debt. Not even bills to maintain an estate asset. I asked them about selling the house, and they waffle on it. A few weeks pass, and I get a nasty gram from the HOA basically telling me they're going to sue me to get their $1,800. I call and ask them politely if they have any paperwork with my signature on it agreeing to take on this debt. Their response is that they don't need a signature, the county saying I'm the property owner, when in fact I have no rights or privileges of ownership, is enough. I try to reason with them that fundamentally that's not how debt works. You can't just say I owe you money without an agreement between us. They stand firm. So I get a lawyer. He responds to them by writing, saying that what you're trying to do is illegal. Their beef is with the executor, not with me. Under Virginia law, an HOA can force the sale of your house to recoup the money they're owed, even if that money is a fraction of the worth of the house. They made some oblique reference to this. Also, this would ruin my credit. Foreclosure would be in my name, yada yada. Eventually, my lawyer got through to them and they put a lien on the house, which, when it was sold, satisfied their debt. While I probably spent $1,000 in legal fees to deal with this, having my lawyer tell me they couldn't F me was a big relief. So I've resolved to never buy property that's managed by an HOA. My opinion of folks on an HOA board is that they're looking for some level of control over other people's lives under which they can assert their will when the people under their control have essentially no recourse. Kind of like departments of residence life in college. Full disclosure, I was an RA in school. I was guilty of this. Or people who want to be managers for all the wrong reasons. I'm sure there are white, shining examples of HOAs and members who do nothing but good and crap rainbows, but that sure as hell has not been my experience. So folks, let this be a lesson. Think twice before you venture into the realm of HOAs. It might just save you from a legal roller coaster. And remember, not all heroes wear capes. Some wield the mighty power of the law. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.